Magic the Gathering has always had a dark side. There's a reason it got swept up into the satanic panic of the 1990s. Some of its cards, usually black ones, are genuinely unsettling, whispering of identity dissolving, of the body rebelling, of minds invaded and selves erased. Across these images, horror takes many forms: clinical, folkloric, psychological, but all point toward the same truth, that behind the game's rules, there's sometimes something watching, something waiting. And if you look too closely, it sometimes looks back. Macabre Waltz combines body horror with blood-soaked elegance. The figures' heads are too smooth and too long. Their limbs look like sticks draped in skin. Their coloring, ashen and uniform, makes them feel less alive than molded. They're close to being human, but deliberately not, kind of like mannequins. That's where the dread lies, in the gap between recognition and revulsion. Their pose mocks intimacy, turning the tenderness of a waltz into something performative and grotesque. That it manages to be disturbing and darkly playful at the same time is what makes this card so effective. This is a painting that twirls on the line between parody and nightmare, never quite settling on either. At first glance, Fleshtaker could pass for something monstrous. A horned beast perhaps, or something that crawled out of Innistrad's soil with sinew and rage. But then you look closer, and you realize that the truth is worse. That's no creature, that's a human. A butcher of some kind, wearing the severed head of a cow like a mask of intention. The tools in their hands are mundane. Meat cleavers, carving knives, instruments we know, turned toward an unknowable purpose. The cornfield around them hems you in, every stalk a prison bar. And their posture, walking toward us with certainty, says it all. There's nowhere to run. This is folk horror in its purest form. The rot that blooms in rural silence, where the rules of the wider world no longer apply. The scariest thing about Fleshtaker is that at some point, they chose this. For a white card, Tividar's crusade is unnervingly grim. There's no radiant light, no gallant charge, just a warped execution scene. The central figure is nailed crucifix style, while hooded zealots look on with a kind of ceremonial detachment. Their robes are almost clerical, but there's nothing holy about what they're doing. This isn't justice, it's dogma turned into violence. The goblin isn't just a creature being removed, but a symbol being destroyed. The art is brutal, even by magic's older standards, and it cuts deeper the more you look. The blood, the posture, the emotionless perpetrators, and behind that, the silent question: how often have we called cruelty righteousness? Sensory deprivation doesn't rely on spectacle. It's the tiny, painstaking details that make your stomach twist. We're pulled into an uncomfortably close portrait of someone whose eyes and mouth have been crudely sewn shut. You can almost feel the drag of the needle, the way the stitches tug the flesh into ridges and folds. The left eyelid isn't sealed so much as pulled into tension. The lips ripple and pucker around the thread. And there, at the corner of the mouth, a loose filament trails off the edge of the image, like the violence isn't even finished yet. Phyrexian Unlife captures a moment of complete undoing, not just of the body, but of the self. A porcelain mask, already melded to the skin beneath, stares back at us with the stillness of death and the agony of awareness. Behind it are familiar hands and eyes we recognize, filled with terror and disbelief. But they're fading fast. They smear black ichor across their face, what was once blood now corrupted into glistening oil. Even their tears have turned against them. There's no escape here, no savior, no turning back. They're slipping into something alien, something wrong. A shape pretending at personhood. There's something uniquely disturbing about puppets, especially when they look like they understand the pain they're in. Treacherous Urge leans into that discomfort with clinical malice. It's a doll carved to resemble agony, caught in a moment of forced performance. But the horror goes deeper when you understand the card's mechanics. You're not just looking at a twisted effigy, you're wielding it. This card lets you reach into someone else's hand, drag their creature onto the battlefield, and then fling it into death. It's manipulation on every level. A borrowed will, a stolen moment, a sacrifice they never agreed to. The visual and mechanical synergy here is ruthless. What makes Ad Nauseam unbearable is the resignation. This is no fresh victim. This is someone who's been here a long time. Body held together by tubes and straps, forced to continue long after any reason for doing so has vanished. Their skin is translucent, their eyes clamped open, but they're still working, writing, scraping, bleeding ink across parchment with arms that are no longer arms but tools. This is what happens when knowledge becomes obsession, when the pursuit of understanding devours the self. Worse than death, it's a life that should have ended. The figures in the promo Bile Blight are dissolving, but not all at once. Their forms are mid-collapse, bones gone soft, faces folding like overripe fruit. The card's name evokes sickness, and that's exactly what this feels like. A disease of form, eating everything that made them solid. One minute you're a person, the next you're mush, and there's no cure coming. Abomination dwells in that uncanny valley. The thing in the image has a human outline, limbs, torso, posture, but it's like the idea of a face was sketched and never finished. No mouth, no nose, just those blank, milky eyes staring through you rather than at you. This is decay in action. Flesh warping mid-scream, bones elongating and breaking as they try to escape their own skin. In the background, people stretch and shudder like puppets dipped in acid. But front and center is a woman whose face is literally unraveling. Eye drooping, jaw slack, fingers melting into cheeks. Her expression is beyond pain. It's a vision of identity coming undone, piece by agonizing piece. Here we're watching a man come apart at the seams, not explosively but slowly, unnaturally. His limbs twist into impossible shapes, fingers softening like wax. His body is bending into something unrecognizable, as though it's being reshaped to fit into a space that was never meant for it. Teeth fall, limbs buckle, his mouth gapes, but it's unclear if it's screaming, or if even that function has been stripped away. What makes it worse is the eyes. They're wide open, and they know. He's still conscious while this is happening. Some cards don't show the thing that's scary, they show the fear itself. Terror is a portrait of panic distilled to its essence. Adam Rex draws on the memento mori symbolism of classic art, creating a loop of death and decay. Skin gives way to the muscles beneath, muscles wither to bare bone. The cycle is inevitable. Grotesque Mutation shows us the body's surrender to something vast, something eldritch. A mouth where a hand should be, fingers splitting like vines or veins or something in between. The art hints at Emrakul's involvement, but the card doesn't need lore to make its point. Pale Rider of Trostad feels like a nightmare from the pre-electric age. Something you'd see crossing a fog-drenched path between towns, and prey wasn't real. There's no face, no eyes, just a rider cloaked in shadows, sitting too still on a horse that looks like it hasn't moved in years. The background is emptiness, no homes, no shelter. The grass is too long, the trees are too quiet. Everything about this scene says, you are far from help. The rider doesn't need to chase you. You'll come to them eventually. There's something deeply wrong about lingering tormentor, even if you can't name it right away. Maybe it's the way the figure seems both solid and insubstantial, like it could evaporate or tear you apart with the same gesture. It looks a little like the Babadook, but it's quieter, sadder. It has fear stitched into its silhouette, the kind that plays on childhood dread. The monster in the corner, just out of focus. And worse, it has patience. At first glance, she's just an old woman in the woods. Harmless, maybe even helpful. Kindly Stranger trades on that expectation, and then tears it to shreds. The transformed side, demon-possessed witch, isn't some distant monster. She was already there, already trusted, already inside the circle. And now she's stronger, sharper, crueler. There's no melting flesh or tentacles, just a sudden shift of tone, the realization that you were never safe, that the kindness was only a mask, and the witch was always waiting beneath it. This is Sleep Paralysis, the Magic card. Nightmare's Thirst feels like something pulled from the hazy edge of a dream, drawing on classic art and making it even creepier. The figure on the bed is gaunt, elongated, half submerged in shadow. The creature on his chest is small but demonic, wreathed in red. The mechanics of the card, draining life and striking with the power of what you've taken, echo the quiet parasitism of an awful nightmare. Pestilence is one of the oldest horrors in magic, and still one of the most disturbing. The body at the center of the image is barely holding itself together, covered in lesions, sores, and mottled skin. The alpha artwork doesn't flinch from any of this. It lingers on the deformities, makes you sit with them, and in doing so, it evokes the fear that illness once inspired before modernity wrapped it in white rooms and hospital gowns. This is the plague as myth, as punishment, and it still reeks of dread. Terrifying Presence weaponizes one of the most primal phobias we carry. A towering spider emerges from the mist, its limbs grotesquely oversized, and humans, small, almost incidental, cower beneath it. This is the dread of inevitability. Endless Ranks of the Dead isn't about the first zombie, it's about the 1000th. There's a ritualistic rhythm to the card, a quiet cadence of death that builds with every upkeep, every body added to the pile. The stained glass window creates a thin, beautiful barrier, while behind it the horde gathers. Rather than showing you the breaking point, it shows you the pause before. The moment when you realize that no matter how many you kill, there will always be more. In Magic's earliest days, few images left such a mark. Terror didn't need fangs or gore, it gave us something simpler. A figure mid-panic, clinging to a wall or floating in space, half consumed by shadow. Their face contorted, limbs flailed, but the true unease comes from context, or the lack of it. What are they running from? Why is a third of the card just black? The framing disorients you. Are we watching them fall, or levitate? Or scream as the world narrows to nothing? It taps into a horror more primordial than monsters. The fear of the unknown, of death, of being alone in the dark. The Fallen is not the most grotesque card in Magic's catalog, but it might be the most unnerving. A gaunt, sunken-eyed creature stands frozen in a joyless grin. Red eyes, hollow sockets, There's something heartbreaking about it too. The suggestion that this thing was once human, that it tried to wield magic and lost itself in the attempt. The flavor text hints at hubris, but the art speaks of something deeper. Suffering made permanent. Until next time, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed these videos, please like, subscribe, and consider joining my Patreon. Your contribution will get your name a spot in the credits for these videos. And I'll see you in the next video.